Hello everybody, today I have the pleasure to propose to you this key 10 entitled Cleansing Essential Milestone on Your Inner Journey. Well, what's the difference with the previous key? Actually, it's just the continuation, a continuum, and in a certain extent, a complementarity. Destruction of the ego and personality, it was to dismantle, to understand how it's functioning, and actually in the personality you have positive and negative things. Here, concretely, the cleansing is to clean up the dirt and the dirty aspects of your side. It means your trauma, your problems, your troubles, and so on. What makes you suffering? So it's not positive at all. It is literally, it is negative in this aspect. Concretely, it is linked to a notion of energy, okay? Everything, psychology, affectively, and so on, is a question of emotion. Emotion, what we can hear with it, emotion, motion, okay, movements, dynamism, and E, literally, is E equal mc2, is the formula of relativity. E means energy, equal mc2 means the mass, the weights, multiplied by the celerity means the speed of light squared. Well, anyway, just for you to keep in mind that emotion is basically some energy in movements. And literally, the notion, the affective dimension is a load, is a weight. So it can be weightlessness, okay? It can be light. You can imagine that if you have positive things, it is like light. Light means weightlessness, okay? And it is also the light, okay? It's something close to awakening. And that's why we talk about ascent. What does it mean? It means it's not necessarily go in the sky. It's just literally to rise up, to rise your energy, to rise your frequencies is a notion of energy. We'll see a special chapter for that, the key 12 for energy, and we'll see that everything basically is energy. As Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secret of the universe, things in terms of energy, frequencies, and vibration. Well, this is another topic we will see, but just for you to understand this notion of emotion linked to the energy. Well, and on the other way around, if you have some problems, you have some matters, right? And matters, literally, it is problem, is double sense. It is matter and materiality, okay? So if you have a lot of problems, concretely, it is darkness, it is heavy, and you feel it. By the way, even people, they have a lot of problems. They are like this, okay? And someone who is awakened, light, and so on is illuminated, is, let's say, shining literally. And we can feel it. We cannot see. He doesn't have the photons from himself, but he has a special energy. That's why, by the way, sometimes we say, oh, life is really unfair. It's a Murphy law. For example, a guy will say, I don't know why I've been single for many years and now I met someone and all the girls are looking at me. Why? And same for a lady, but why? Because he's shiny now. Before he was maybe shy, maybe let's say ingoing, let's say, and now he's outgoing, is shiny, is, let's say, is enlightening people. That's why he's attract more people. His magnetism is like magnets. So actually it's the same principle with energy and emotions. So the thing regarding cleansing is around 3 axes. The first axis is yourself, your own problems, troubles, and so on that you have since your childhood. Okay, you can, maybe you inherit them when you were a baby, child, or during your teenagerhood, or later when you're adults, and so on. But first, second one is from your lineage, from your family. Okay, is let's say is like when you inherit from you know, the hot potato. In a certain extent, is a little bit of poison, but anyway, it's like this. You have from your family, your ancestors, even if you didn't know them. And last point is from the karma. okay, is karmic dimension. So let's try to see one by one. The first one, concretely, it is linked to what we call the body of suffering, or the suffering body. Concretely, what is it? It is a kind of a fluid, a cloud that it has been generated and fed by yourself through your emotion. So it is reciprocal because you feed it and they give you by return back some emotions and so on. It's like vicious cycle. So concretely, this becomes a part of yourself, but personally I use more the example, the analogy of a backpack, okay, of stones, black stones. Okay, so concretely it is all your matters, all your trauma, big or small anyway, and it's important to treat them independently and separately, okay, because all of them, they are not from the same origin and they don't necessarily need the same tool or therapy. So this is important to, the aspects is to visualize, to identify, visualize where they are, what they are, and where they are from, and so on, to recognize them, and not to ignore them, to recognize them. Otherwise, you can put the dust under your bed or in another room. Yeah, it's fair enough, and you will think that your house is clean. I mean, the living place where you, yes, it is, but actually you still have the dust. It's the same principle when we put pollution in another country or at the border and so on. It's, or in the sea, worse. So it's the same principle. So you can kick it out, but actually, you know, it's like when you have an operation with a surgery, you can live with a compress inside your body. It's happened sometimes. It's a little bit annoying, a little bit painful, but you can survive like this. It's really up to you. But sometimes, you know, it's like when you're hiking and you just realize that well, it's quite heavy, you know, you like some pain and so on, and then you realize that what is inside, and you just realize that maybe you have 10 liters of water. Okay, guys, who's thirsty? And then you share, and then 5 liters less. 5 liters is 5 kilo. I feel better, and so on. So we will see that actually these stones exist because we gave them a reason for being. You know, it's like hypnosis. Hypnosis is just the fact when someone is completely hypnosed, he really believes unconsciously that is, for example, you say, oh, you are a stone, so the guy become a stone. So it can be, he's so strict that he will be on a peak. So it's not human, it's not possible, right? It is, because the subconscious integrated the fact is a stone. So he believed that, it becomes reality for this. So that's why the stone exists. This is energy, but as long as we think it's tangible and there is density, it has an impact on us. But once we want to liberate, it can disappear very quickly. So it's not so easy. I'm not saying, and I really take some precautions. I'm cautious when I say that because I know it's delicate. I've been depressed when I was young, in a deep depression. During 1 year, I let's say forecast my suicide. Okay, so it's not. It was during 1 year. So I know that when you are like this, it is you don't see the beauty of the sky. Okay, you have your sunglasses, your black sunglasses, and all you see, a baby, a plant, a beautiful flower, it is black. Okay, so concretely is this. So I'm not saying it's so easy, of course not, but there is one phenomenon. So as we say, the suffering body, or the body of suffering. This is what some people, some British, let's say, psychologists, they talk about Calimero effect or syndrome. Calimero, maybe some of you know, it's a cartoon, he's always complaining, it's really unfair, it's really unfair. And actually, he likes, this character's reason for being is to cry and to be unhappy and so on. But actually, the character is more for the fiction. But concretely, when you say, I'm sad, Okay, you're sad, you're sad, you're sad. What does it mean? You're punctually sad, right? You're not Mr. Sad. Hello, Mr. Sad. Oh, I recognize you. I saw you on the movie and so on. Mr. Sadness. Ah, you embody all the sadness. No, you are punctually, yeah, in this state of sadness. Okay, it's not always raining, right? There is movements. Everything is impermanence. Okay, in life. So your sadness will disappear. We don't I mean, you're not arrived on this planet being sad. And okay, you cry at the beginning, but you're not sad. Minimum when you're 3 or 4 years old, you can be sad, but not before. You're not aware about that. And nobody has 100% of his time or his life sad. It's impossible. Okay. Well, anyway, just to say, we are not the sadness. We have a state of mind punctually changing. And this is really important to make this effort to change this mentality to maintain these states. Okay, I am like this punctually. It can change. This is important. And once again, to accept the fact that it can be punctual. Everybody has up and down, and also because up and down means amplitudes. And you know, if you are like this, it means that you are dead, right? And by the way, you know, just be comfortable with that. You can observe the movie stars, the neurotic, sometimes you can see in your network and so on. If you know someone who has absolutely no problems, never had any hardship, trauma, and so on, please contact me urgently, because he should be a prototype, because it's impossible. We are here to experience life. We are here to experience emotions. We are here to understand what is to be. We are not to be. What is the question? That is the question, right? So concretely, it is this, to make the experience of what you are not, to understand what you are deeply, the true I am. Okay, so literally, I'm not saying that necessarily suffering is, let's say, a prerequisite, but actually a problem solved is, let's say, can be, let's say, a treasure. I'll give you some personal example. Now I'm a therapist and I help people for retreats and so on in general, for coaching of life coach. And actually, having been depressed for many years, I've been in a quest of sense, of meaning of life, of happiness. When I have 65 keys to be happy in the life, it means that I thought a little bit about that, and I find some good results working for me, and I try to share this. It doesn't mean that it will work for everybody, because everybody is different, but at least I can share my humble experience, and then I can help people. I've been addicts. I had a problem of drugs and alcohol, and we now help people with a problem of addiction. I can talk to someone about this deeply, because I know I could not give tips or advice for midwifery stuff. I never give birth, and I will never give birth. Okay, as a matter of fact. Okay, so this is important to see, to realize that I do the short list of some trauma I had that I solved, and which became treasures, source of, let's say, richness now, because it's solved. So I embrace them as wonderful experience to improve myself and to be more solid in this life. I've been dyslexic. Now I wrote maybe 15 books. I've been shy, and I did things. I did sport competition at high level. I did theater. Then I gave conference in front of 500 people and so on. So now I'm not shy anymore. I'm quite outgoing, you see. So it means that not every situation, if I used to say I'm shy when I was young, it was true. And if I repeat every day, I'm shy, I'm shy, I'm shy, I'm conditioned with this feeling. So I would have stayed shy. But it was not, Aurélien, I am shy. No, I was not. I was punctually this. That's it. So Another example, for instance, I'm hypersensitive, I'm empath. Okay, so when I was 3, 4 years old, I was traumatized by what I could see in Ethiopia and so on, crying all the time. And doctors say is abnormal. Okay, and I'm proud to be not to be normal at this period because I had collective consciousness. You see what I mean? So this sensitivity sense means that you develop your 6 senses. It means you develop your intuition. And I was feeling the pain of life, of, let's say, the unity and so on. So now I know how it works. It's like a dam. I can choose when I open up the door or not. I'm not a robot, of course. I still have my sensitivity, but not hypersensitivity. And I can choose, but it was a treasure to perceive life differently. Dyslexia brings you that. The fact you are doing some links and so on with many things, it brought me what? Multidisciplinarity, holistic dimension, and so on. For me, was built in. When I discovered this word, maybe 15 years ago, holistic, I say, my God, it exists. There is a word for that. There is a perception like this. I was always entangling everything, every concept and so on, trying to explain to other people. You understand? And if you see how many great people have been dyslexic, it means, I'm not saying that it's good to be like this necessarily, but every apparently so-called weaknesses, when it's well treated, can become a springboard to reach a certain happiness and fulfillment and richness in a certain extent. So there is different way to treat a trauma and so on. Either you do by your own, either you're helped. It's possible to do by your own. I did so many things like therapy for myself and so on. Happiness, I had a psy, it didn't work. 2 of them didn't work, and finally by my own it worked. And then for alcohol as well, only myself. But then I use different things with help of people as well, for energy and so on. For example, for the karma, for the lineage, this I use some people, okay, some guides, some intercessors and so on. So let's try to do step by step, but concretely, when you have for example, a problem of, let's say, something like a decay, a cavity. You go to dentist, it's normal. You go to specialists. So when you have a certain trauma, there is no to be ashamed. We go to a specialist for this person in charge of it. And it's important to try to get some help from people. Okay, so you can do by your own. Is more, let's say, dangerous, is riskier, and also is more painful most of the time. But so I invite you to use the proper person for that. Then in the process, it's very important to identify your problem, then to recognize them, and with the will of changing, because sometimes there is a certain kind of not complice, but you establish a certain proximity with your dependence, with your sadness and so on, and you don't want to, unconsciously, you don't want to let it go, because there is a certain pleasure in it. You attract attention, compassion, a shoulder to cry and so on, oh, poor you and so on. So it's a little bit like mommy, oh, poor you and so on. Sometimes the kids, when they fall down, you just observe their parents to see if they look at and they cry if we look at them, and otherwise they don't. So you see, it's a little bit like this sometimes, and the will is really important, but not the will in the sense, okay, I'm gonna try to make you happy. No, you do it for yourself. So not in the sense that, okay, I'm gonna try this therapist because apparently is 100% successful. We will see if he's also successful with me. And in the sense that it's like a trap, and you just want to demonstrate he is not so solid, and he will not work with you. So if you go in that sense, it's like those who say hypnosis will not work on me. Don't do. It will never work on you. You need to be prepared on that. This is the somatic dimension. Somatic means that you're literally convinced about an effect, and thereby it has an impact on you. Because subconsciously, unconsciously, if this is your truth, it becomes the reality. That's why the principle of somatic is placebo, which means literally in Latin, I heal. So you take just a piece of sugar and in a pill, and we say, oh, it's an amazing cure and so on, and then, oh, I feel better, and there is nothing inside. And nocebo is the contrary. It means that I affect negatively the impact. So I think, I don't know, for example, let's take a good example for that. You are convinced, for one side, you are a French culture, and you think, because the scientists say, drinking a red glass of wine per day is good for health. You drink, oh, you're so good, you're so happy, and so on. As a matter of fact, it affects you positively. You are, for example, for a certain culture, Muslim, for instance, and for you, alcohol, according to your beliefs, is haram, is bad. Okay, so, and you try to confront, saying, okay, the scientists, they say that, the religion, they say that, okay, let's try. And then you can be sure that the effect will be negative for you. So what's true? There is no absolute truth. The absolute truth is from the divine. It's not real. I mean, it's potential. So it is the sum of the whole subjectivity and subjective truth. So both are right, both according to the belief. What I try to tell you is like a tattoo. If you have a tattoo because you believe of something that you are not capable of anything, you have this tattoo forever, and you can clean. It will never disappear. You need to do an operation for that. And this is a reprogramming stuff, okay? So that's why sometimes you need some help from outside. This is extremely important. But the first thing is to identify, to recognize, and the real profound desire to change and to improve. Then the process that we recommend most of the time, and the most successful one, are the following. The first one is the acceptation. The second one is the welcoming, and then the forgiveness. What does it mean, the welcoming? You embrace your problem. You embrace a disease. Don't fight with, because you're gonna create reaction force in physics. You know, it's like vector, and it is in a position. So the fact to embrace concretely, you discharge. How do you do to, when you have a pain and so on, you want to relax, you engage, and then you relax. When you do a massage, concretely, you have a certain friction, right? You do like this. And by doing that, it can be a little bit painful sometimes, but when you release, it works like this. So concretely, how you free up from a pathology and so on, you just discharge. You discharge this energy which made you suffer. That's why when we have a process of rebirth and so on, we relieve that. We relieve these moments, and thereby we release the emotion, the energy and movements, affective dimension, linking us to it. This is like you're tied to this, but you are not this. You have the right and power, ability to separate from it, and just to be grateful for this experience, as I'm grateful for having been alcoholic, a drug addict, and so on and so forth. I'm happy for that, because I will not change anything. It was just a training, it's just an experience for me to know what I am now. You have to do the experience of what you are not to know, to deeply know what you are, the true I am. This is really important to understand that. Then second part is to try to figure out about your heritage, let's say, that you inherit from your lineage, your family and so on, your ancestors, okay, a fear of missing something, and that's why you are in a bulimia, always of having more money, more money, more money. You have 10 cars, 5 villas, and you are always more, more, more. This is a pathology. This is definitely a pathology because you want to fulfill something which is empty, but this course, this race is endless. So this is important to visualize where it's come from. And then it can be from your father, from your grandfather, or even further, that's someone that you never know. But the goal is just to say, thank you. Thank you for teaching me. I understood the lesson now. Take it back. I mean, you don't send back the hot potato, of course not. It's just a process of, thank you, I understood. No need anymore, okay? You don't necessarily need, you know, when you learn how to do bicycle, you have these little things, these little wheels. You don't need anymore. It's the same. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I understood properly what was to be alcoholic. Now I don't need anymore. And I'm very happy of that because now I fly and I can have this substitute through the drag of life and to be completely always in this permanent marveling aspect of life. Okay, so anyway, just to tell you that I will invite you because, you know, this is the process also to analyze the notion of the impact of now, the past, and even further. That's to say the reincarnation. The reincarnation, for this, you need necessarily either to be in altered consciousness, so it can be with an inner journey, shamanic journey, can be under substance, it can be, personally I don't recommend, I never did, but I had, for example, experience of out of body, for instance, astral travel. This is a good way. Hypnosis as well works well, or it can be through, for instance, shamanic journey. Personally, I practice, but with only drums, fasting, and so on, natural ones. So it's more difficult and longer than taking a pill, of course, but it's natural at least, and it's more respectful for process of life and so on. This is my perception, it's personal. Anyway, just to tell you that you can also use a specialist for that, and he can just do some certain adjustments, not charlatans, of course, they all. So be careful about that, but at least some people that you have been recommended and so on, co-opted. And this actually, reincarnation, you believe or you don't believe in reincarnation is not the point. It's just archetypes, egregore, or thoughts forms. What is it concretely? It is, the archetypes is a stereotype of actions repeating on the during the time. For example, the archetypes of injustice, okay, the cheated wife, or I don't know, anything like this. Egregore is same, but for a kind of collective dimension, hate, wars, and so on. So it can be separate words, but the effect of the words are always the same: pain, okay, or conquest, and so on, blood, and so on and so forth. So a good one is Romeo and Juliet. Okay, Romeo and Juliet didn't exist, but the archetypes or the egregore existed through probably decades in different countries and so on. Similar, let's say, scenario. This is this concretely. So you believe or not in reincarnation, you have been Shakespeare, you have not been, to be or not to be is not the question. We don't care. It's just the fact that if you are depending on, because actually concretely the cell memory that we have for the mankind is potentially in your blood and in your DNA. Okay, so it's a word heritage. So concretely, you have been this person or not is a part of the collective unconsciousness. Okay, it is the collective unthinking. Okay, what we call also Akasha, Akashic record, world, the Plato's world of ideas, and so on. There is many ways to talk about that. It is also the morphic fields from Rupert Sheldrake, and so on and so forth. Just to tell you that whatever the impact is, just to see, to visualize the dependence with it. So The good way is the same treatment for personal trauma nowadays because of your childhood, because of your when you were a teenager or adult, whatever, to know the origins from your lineage or from your karma, actually is to embrace them, okay? And also to use therapists or an intercessor to discharge this dependence with it and to be disconnected and just to be grateful for the experience, basically. But actually, you know, even this notion of karma is not necessarily you have a shitty life because you did shit in the past, sorry to be vulgar, but concretely is more presently you act or you behave well, so thereby you clean up what was your past, having an impact on your presence and let's say establishing the good foundation for your future. So it's more like a cycle and a positive, let's say, a ripple effect, so a domino effect. Please think about that. And actually, what I invite you to do as a practice is to list the different problems you have and you had. You had supposedly the fact they are solved, okay? So to try to visualize what was the techniques, the strategy, and the tools you use to see if you can adapt them for the current ones. The current ones try to visualize those who have the same pathology, to try to be inspired about the way they did, because it can work, it's a kind of benchmark. It can be in association and so on, but try not to be dependent on it. It's like anonymous alcoholic, no need to spend 10 years in it, otherwise, I mean, it's not a finality. I tell you that because a friend of mine, a good guy, is a life coach. And recently he said to me, I have a patient, she said to me, oh, it's already finished and so on, but I want to continue to extend and so on. But he said, I can abuse financially, but actually you don't need anymore. So you don't need necessarily a friendship with me and so on. So, and for her, it was a pleasure, but this is, you see what I mean, it's not, the objective is not that. The Alcoholic Anonymous is not, let's say, to find someone, friends and so on, relative or partner, whatever. It's just to solve your problem. So once it's done, don't establish a new dependence towards that. Okay, so, well, this is what is important in to visualize the benchmark. How did they do concretely to solve their problems? And try to visualize the different lists of what you can do for that. I invite you as well, as a ritual, to do the following. You take a piece of paper and you write all the problems that you have. And then you burn, as a symbol, you burn it, okay? And then try to feel that it starts the process of disappearing and discharging this energy, tying, linking you to them, actually. And then you can do several times this process, this rites, the ritual, and in parallel to do official things with real therapists and or some specialists and so on, some traditional medicine or let's say modern medicine, whatever, what is good for you. Once again, this is true for everything, but actually there is not miraculous recipe, there is only miraculous adaptation, okay? So, well, I invite you to think about that, to meditate actively, passively, intuitively, to watch several times this video accordingly. Try to take the notes, try to resume, to synthesize, try to exchange with people, to try to reformulate, rephrase, to exchange with someone, also to share the video, to see the perception. Like this, you will give birth probably to a third vision. And once again, this is only one key, because there is many keys, many doors, and doing this kind of steps, step by step, you're gonna shape your own master key to open up the doors of consciousness that you want. Well, once again, all the roads lead to Rome and to home. See you soon.